food is, at the end of the day, a central part of life. People always say to me, you'll be right, everyone needs to eat. And you're like, but everyone can cook at home as well. Would they really want to go out to restaurants and cafes? They will, to the places that bring the soul.
Today on Dirty Linen, we are going to dig into the Today on Dirty Linen, we're going to dig into the intricacies, the joys, the challenges, the heartbreak and fun of owning a couple of small businesses, restaurants in Melbourne. Quach is the owner and founder of Tom Phat in Brunswick and of Bhang, an Indian cocktail bar, also in Brunswick in the inner city of Melbourne. Whatever there is to know about running a restaurant, you know all about it. So welcome to Dirty Linen.
Thanks so much, Dani. I hope I know all about it.
Well, you must, because you can't run a restaurant that keeps drawing in the punters for 20 years without knowing one or two things about hospitality. Give us a little bit of the backstory. Tell us about your businesses and how it comes to be you that's doing them.
Well, I think as anyone says in hospital, you sort of fall into it. It was something I always waitressed when I was a student, and then managed to, and then sort of like stepped up the ranks and became a manager. And then when I finished uni, I kind of realised that my major in anthropology wasn't really going to find me a job. And so I ended up just sort of staying in a hospo, and then fell in love with a chef, and I sort of do front of house. So we decided that we wanted to do our own place, and Tom Phat was born. That was about 18 years ago. And then things happen in life. We bought a house, had a baby, all that stuff. And then we decided to open up a second one called Bhang in Brunswick as well. And that's kind of what we're both doing now still.
And do you still have that demarcation where you're sort of running the front of house and
Dougal? And
Dougal is doing the food?
Yeah, so he's always the chef, and I have always just done front of house. The role has obviously changed, where we're both sort of overseeing both businesses, but he mainly just does looks after Bhang, and I sort of look after Tom Phat, and then also liaison with my manager at Bhang. Yeah.
And tell us a bit about the restaurants, like what sort of food offering do they have?
Tom Phat is Southeast Asian. So when we created Tom Phat, there wasn't really much in terms of there was your cheap and cheerful Asian eateries, and then you had your really, fine dining version, but even then not so much. And we thought we could do a middle of the range experience. So offer, because not a lot of places, Asian places would offer cocktails and drinks as well. It'd just be mainly about going there and eating the food. So we're both really into creating third spaces and creating a vibe and making sure that everyone has a good time and doing it with food and drink. So that was Tom Phat, and that was when Brunswick was really not much. Yeah, there was maybe a couple of places back then. There was I think it was a minor place in Green Refectory, but other than that, nothing else. And it sort of built, the suburb grew, and Tom Phat sort of, grew, and then there was Bhang, which we had wanted to do an Indian place. So then Bhang sort of came about when we were ready for a second place, and my only thing was I just wanted to be in Brunswick because I hate traffic. So, and I also just, I know and love Brunswick, so it's kind of the market that I understand most.
And yeah, so Bhang's an Indian place. I've been there recently and thought it was really fun. You know, a lot of spice-infused cocktails, quite a few snacks, lots of shared dishes using a charcoal grill as well. So a lot of, you know, layered flavours through the food and a really fun experience.
Yeah, they do a great job down there, the boys. So Dougal sort of helms the kitchen, and then there's Justin and Ricky and the bar manager. And it's just about, like, I mean, that's Hospo. Hospo is about bringing, like, you know, not just joy, but, like, making sure everyone has a good time. And that's why, you know, there is that struggle sometimes to sort of give and give, and because that's all you do, you give. And you go in there and you're giving emotionally, you're giving physically, and, you know, and all you do want is to make sure that, you know, everyone walks out the door and, goes to sleep thinking about, you know, the great time they had. Whether they know why and what that is, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. When I left Bhang, I definitely felt that, but I also felt pretty excited because I had some leftover beef ribs and goat curry for the next day. So that joy continued. So Sway, you know, you talk about giving and, the sort of constant sort of output of hospitality, but I can also tell that you're a clever thinker about it, you know, even just to thinking, well, I don't want to go too far afield because I don't want to be sitting in traffic to get between my restaurants. Like that, I suppose, does show a bit of resolve and strategy. And I know you're going to have a lot of tips that would help people who, you know, are a little bit fresher to the restaurant game. So, I mean, tell me, you know, some of your tips for new players.
Eyes wide open at the moment, I feel, because it's really competitive. I do feel like if you don't know why you're doing it, who your target audience is, what your expenses are going to be, what your, you know, outgoings and rent will be, how to negotiate, all those little things, I feel like it will be a really tough journey ahead, because back when we opened Tom Phat, we were really green and you didn't really have to know much. You just had to have passion, you know. That was before like Chris Lucas and Andrew McConnell and all those like really big players. And then Hospo became more of a business, I feel. And so now I feel like if you're, you know, like a new person, you would, you'd probably want to just make sure you have quite a lot of experience in the industry first, and also some mentors just to, you know, get advice from.
It's interesting that you mentioned, you know, some of those prominent restaurateurs who've, I guess really changed the dining landscape in Melbourne. I mean, do you sort of look back with fondness on those more naive days where you could just, I don't know, paint a room and cook some food and call it a restaurant? Or do you think that there have been benefits to that, I guess, increasing professionalisation of the industry?
Both. Like, obviously, it was way easier to do hospitality without the pressures, you know, of just, you know, knowing, you know, how to structure price, how to build a team, how to keep staff, all that stuff. Like, because there'd be an abundance there'd be an abundance of people wanting to work in hospitality. There'd be an abundance of customers. And I guess with Melbourne sort of being more of a food and sort of drink capital of the world, the standard has raised to a point where, like, you really do need to know what you're doing to survive, because it's just that good in Melbourne. And I think that's great as well, because that's totally changed the game, but it's like challenged me, you know, like it's made everyone step up, and it's like, you can't just open, you know, the doors and, like, you know, just put tables and chairs and go, yep, I'm a restaurant. You know, diners expect a lot more. And so, you know, you do need to, you know a lot more, give a lot more. And now it's more, you need to have a team, I think. Like, it can't just be like, you know, mum and dad type of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's talk about some of those relationships and structures that you create in a restaurant. I mean, you've sort of mentioned the feeling that you want to leave your customers with, but can you talk about some of the other relationships that you build within and around restaurants?
Well, originally, like, you always hear, like, when you're in small business, you've got to learn to let go. Because, like, if you don't let go, you end up sort of working in it 24/7. And, no one can be as good as the owner. Like, and the expectation's there because customers will come up to you and go, oh, it's not as good as when you're there. And you're like, okay, cool, but I don't know if you want to see me here every day because I'll just be really grumpy. But like, it's not just letting go. It's like making sure that like your managers and then also your staff, down to the kitchen hand, stay sort of motivated and engaged in the business, and they only do that by knowing that you are motivated and engaged, but also what the business is about, why, we do what we do, not just this like, that old like leadership style. My boss used to be like that, like, do as I say, not as I do. It's now, yeah, it's more now like you gotta give the young, the millennials, and they want to know why. And it's great because, we're not robots. You just have, people want to learn stuff.
Yeah. So would you say that when you opened Bang, is it 4 or 5 years ago, that it was a much more intentional business in terms of that why, just because, times had changed?
Definitely. Everything. Like, I think some of my core staff that I had like relationships with from Tom Phat helped me open, came along with the journey. And so they sort of, I already had a relationship with Justin, and so he helps me manage it. But it's through that relationship where he's done the journey with me at Tom Phat, because there's lots of highs and lows. And for me, hospitality is about food and drink, but it's about people and it's about relationships, not just with your customers, but, with your staff, but also with yourself. Like, I've learned so much going through this journey. And, at times I'm like, I don't know if I've got any more in me to keep getting pushed like this. But on the other hand, I'm like, it's the thrill. It's the roller coaster ride. You take it because you love it. You're addicted, Dani. We're addicted. Like, hospo started back in the day full of alcoholics and, druggies in a way. Like, we were just all like creatives that worked in hospitality because it was casual, it was flexible, it was social, but it was really unsociable hours as well. And now it's more of a business, and it's, how do you keep sort of the creativity and the passion alive? And I think that's why you've got a team, because you've got your financial people and then you've got your creative people.
Well, what is it, when it has to be a bit more serious? I mean, what is it that you are addicted to? What is it that keeps you coming back or keeps you engaged?
For me, I guess it's the challenge. It's like you wake up and you're like, okay, I've got this and this and this to do, but I've also got all these issues I've got to resolve. And you don't think about it. It's like, don't think, just do. And I feel like in life, it's like, that's what it's about. Just, you don't have to think about the meaning of life. You just do it. Just do something, do anything. And hospo keeps me on my feet so much that I don't have time to think.
I mean, you say that, but I know that you're also about keeping a little bit of balance, because without that balance, it's hard to continue to be creative. So, I mean, how do you, I won't say strike a happy medium, because it's, always going to be a little bit of a scrambly medium, but how do you at least carve out some time for creativity and vision?
Small business is all consuming. It is. So if you're going to get into small business, my advice is make sure it's what you love, because you live it and you breathe it. regardless of whether you want to or not. You know, as much as I'm like, I'm going to switch off my phone at 7 p.m. or 10 p.m. or whatever, you can't. So you have to be disciplined enough to sort of have boundaries and sort of go, all right, I'm not going to go out with, you know, to this thing because, you know, I've got a full work of week or something. I don't know. It's a lot of sacrifice as well. Like, I think you do need, you know, it is really, really important to have space from the business, but also to yourself, because hospitality is really social. So you don't see the emotional sort of toll. You see the physical and you go, oh, I'm really tired, I'm going to have a nap. But emotionally, you don't know that you're totally drained until you have a meltdown or until you know, crack it at someone. And you don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean,
that's what happens to a lot of small business people. They, you know, I don't know. It's hard for them. It's hard for us, yeah.
Well, what do you look out for, and what are some of the, like, I don't know, release valves that you can find?
I guess I look out for, like, let's say if I'm hiring people, I make sure that there's sort of clear boundaries, like, because it's a small business, it is really hard to sort of have that line between professional and personal, especially if sometimes I work shifts with them, so they see me as their friend rather than their boss. So I guess clear communication is really important. So you've got to sort of like make sure they understand that you are their friend, but you're also their employer. And so therefore, when they're texting you about stuff, you have to make sure that, like, you know, there's the neediness maybe. Like, you have to know your role. You have to go, oh, I'm not their mother, or I'm not their housemate, or I'm not their boyfriend, girlfriend. I'm their boss. So there's only so much I can, you know, give or support. And then you just have to communicate to them that, you know, I'm really sorry, but maybe, you know, is there someone else that can, you know, yeah. It's that kind of thing. It's really hard because you care about everyone and you care about everything. But if you don't look after yourself, you won't be able to care about everyone and everything.
Everybody's talking about the staff shortage. It's definitely hard yards out there. What is it, some of the things that you're doing to combat that?
Staff shortage. Well, recently I had a chef sort of away for 5 weeks. She had to go back to Thailand for her daughter's wedding. And I was sort of stressed out about sort of, filling all the shifts because she was a full-time chef as well. But I sort of looked at, you know, it was really hard to find a chef, and then as time was ticking and, you know, it got closer to the date that she was leaving, I realised that, like, Friday and Saturday were the biggest shifts and I just really needed to fill those shifts. And then on the other nights, I just have to limit capacity, like limit my bookings. And also I jumped into the kitchen to learn a little bit of the pass. So I sort of, because I thought, you know what, I should keep learning about, you know, I should keep learning things and challenging myself. So, yeah, I sort of said to the chefs, you know, do you want me to limit bookings, or do you think I could be of a bit of a help and, like, jump in to the, you know, the pass section where I look after dockets and, you know, do coconut rice. And, we did that really for, like, the weeknights, sort of balanced it between capacity bookings and, you know, me helping out a little bit and getting, I used an app called SUP, which finds you casual hospitality workers. So I just found a chef to fill the Friday, Saturday nights and paid them loads of money.
Yeah, well, I think it's definitely a juicy topic, which I definitely want to keep digging into, is SUP and other apps like that for those stopgap stopgap chefs in front of house, but, I know that a lot of really, talented hospitality professionals are basically, finding work through that on an ongoing basis. It's a really interesting change to the landscape, isn't it?
I don't think I don't know, we've used it for a few weeks, and I've actually also seen some posts on like Chef Exchange on Facebook and stuff, and I feel like, look, they're like everything, when like all the sort of international workers come back in and stuff like that, those apps will die because your talented chefs and stuff who go and earn lots of money just doing casual shifts, it's only if they've got a goal and they've got to save money. But if they're looking for, like, I don't know, long-term satisfaction or, anything like that, they realise that it's hard. It's hard to step into a restaurant or kitchen and not, know anyone and just, do a really, big night. And like, I read a post with a chef saying, I've done a few sup shifts and, I get paid a lot, but it's not for me. I don't like, people abusing me in the kitchen. I thought that was in the 80s, and I'm looking for something long-term or this and that. And I realised to myself, yeah, temporary is temporary. And that's what you should use that app for, because it's just a stopgap and that's it.
Yeah, well, I guess there is definitely going to be an extra layer of pressure of bringing someone in on one of your most busy shifts, and that they're basically starting from zero. That's going to be a lot for, all sides of the equation.
Yeah, totally. And the thing is, the industry will change, and it's always changing. The game's always changing. So staff shortages, like, it was frustrating sort of trying to look for chefs and having people throw, back in your face, being, that's not enough money type of thing. And you're like, whatever. like, do you want a job that's, that's going to give you job satisfaction for, like, I don't know, 5 years or 10 years? Or are you looking for, like, 120 grand now, which once there's more workers, you're probably going to lose your job anyway?
Interesting. And I think in light of what you were saying later about, keeping those lines between being boss and friend, quite clear, it's interesting that you put yourself in, I guess, quite a vulnerable position of doing a new job for you in the kitchen of running the pass. I mean, how did that go? Like, how was the actual job part of it, and what was the dynamic like?
I think I had to ask the chefs if that's what they wanted, and surprisingly, they said yes. So they let me in there. I think perhaps they wanted me to see, like, their side and, like, how hard it is, maybe, or I don't know what. But it turned out that I was like, hey, this is really easy. No, I was like, you guys should be working harder. No, it actually made the bond between me and the chefs a lot stronger. It already is, because I just think the chefs are amazing, working hours on their feet, physically demanding work, like in front of heat, and then having to deal with, like, us front of house people sipping drinks and talking and laughing to customers. So I loved my time in the kitchen. I loved it. But I'm a foodie, so when I get a chance, do cook at home. So I think the chef was slightly impressed that, like, that I understood the flavours, and, when he was like, you've got to, balance out the sweet and salty, and I'm like, yeah, okay. And I just did it. I think he sort of thought, okay, Sway knows the thing.
That's good.
Because I'm thinking, well, I've done this menu for 18 years.
Yeah, you'd hopefully know a little bit about it.
Yeah.
So if people aren't talking about staffing, Sway, they're talking about the cost of goods and just price rises left, right and centre. What kinds of things are you doing to combat price hikes?
Look, that's tricky, because you sort of go, are the prices going to, come down at any point, and when will that point be? So I'll talk to, like, the meat guy and the veggie guy, and I'll be like, what do you guys think? And then you get just totally different opinions. Oh, yeah, it's just going to be 6 weeks. It'll be till the end of the year. And you're like, okay. And then every week I get the bill and I'm like, it's not going down. And then we sort of tried portioning down some of our dishes instead of raising the prices. But when I saw the portioning down, I just wasn't happy. I said to the chefs, nah, I'd rather give them what I believe is, a proper plate of food and just charge, because people have to understand the value of, how much a dish should cost. And so that's the tactic we're going to do. We'll probably raise our prices on some things that we have to, and then on other things we'll absorb the prices and take a loss. And then I'm just gonna wait it out, Hopefully, fingers crossed by the end of the year, 2023.
So you think prices will come down, and you also mention, international workers coming back. Do you reckon that's going to happen? Is there going to be a big influx?
Look, I hear with prices. I hear it's like not just. It's about the floods, and then it's the Ukraine war, and it's, petrol prices going up, so transportation getting affected. So I figured to myself, okay, it's just like, a whole load of stuff. And surely that's not going to happen again in 2023, coming out of pandemic. So I just sort of think it has to be better. And if it isn't, it can't be worse, because it's pretty bad. It's, we're all hanging at the moment. So, and in terms of workers, if not the internationals, we are going to get new young people, step into the industry and get trained up. So, the places that can train staff, they're doing it. It's like even at Bhang and Tom Phat, we're going for, when we hire, we just go for attitude. We don't go for experience at all. We just train. And I feel like that's part of giving back to the industry as well. If a business can train staff to, to stay in hospitality, and that's what we should do.
Yeah, that's so great. And are you finding, you're getting applicants and people with the attitude that you think they need to?
Yeah, they're just all really young people that haven't, it's their first job. And we just give them really, really, really easy tasks. Like, all you have to do is polish cutlery. Start with that. And then, once they get comfortable with that, it's like, okay, now you might go and, wipe a table down and reset. It's like, a 16-year-old with the right attitude can be better than like a 28-year-old who's over hospitality. Yeah,
well, sure. As a diner, you definitely want to have that, upbeat, welcoming, friendly feeling. Skills dispensed with a bad attitude don't make anyone feel good.
No, we find the young staff are totally happy as to come to work and appreciative, and they'll polish that cutlery like it's gleaming. And then, you can ask an old school, hospital person to do it. They wouldn't want to do, it's like they just want to talk to customers or something, and you're like, there's more to work.
Yeah, really interesting. Well, Sway, what is it that you love about what you do? What is it that keeps you coming back every day?
I love the journey. I love the journey. I feel like it's really rewarding. There's highs and lows, but when you get something right, when you nail something, when you resolve an issue, when you, build a team and everyone's really happy, it's great. The feeling is amazing. And, and the lows, you've got to have the lows to appreciate the highs. And to me, that's life. So I live my life every day through work. Work is my life, and, my life is work. But that is, on the other hand, you've got to be the type of person that enjoys hospitality or small business, because it is consuming and there's lots of mental health issues if you don't if you don't love being challenged or something. Yeah. Like if you love job security, don't go into hospitality. Like if you love annual leave where you're like, I get 6 weeks off or this or that. Oh, I don't know. It's going to be hard pressed to find a job that gives you, like maybe go into teaching or something. I don't know. But if you love, figuring out problems, and if you love people, talking to people, it's like I'm sure that's what you love about sort of being a food writer. Not just the food, but it's the stories,
It's definitely the stories and the people. I love food, but it's the people that, bring it together that keeps me coming back. Absolutely.
And that's the thing. And food is, at the end of the day, a central part of life. So there's historical stories, cultural stories, it's just, I think food is that central thing. Like people always say to me, you'll be right, everyone needs to eat. And you're like, but everyone can cook at home as well. Would they really want to go out to restaurants and cafes? But they will, I think, to the right, to the places that sort of, I don't know, bring the soul. I don't know.
Well, Sway, you know what I reckon? I reckon you got a job as an anthropologist after all.
I feel like my uni studies actually really helped me with hospitality, because when I sort of started on the floor, I just get people regularly coming back because they'd want to like fill me in on their lives, and I loved hearing it. Even at Tom Phat, people were like, oh, I got proposed here, I had my first date here, and this is my 15-year-old now, and I'm like, I love it.
Yeah, that's really special. Definitely anchoring a community and being, a special part of people's own journeys. Sway, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. So many practical tips, but also some really, heartfelt stories and insights. So yeah, I really appreciate you bringing it all to Dirty Linen today. Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity, Dani. I hope, it helps someone out there, I guess. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtyLinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This